Okay.
Hey, yo, good morning.
Hello.
All right, so I'm Mike Britt from New Jersey, and you are.
I'm Janine Skinner.
All right, so who do you support for Democratic nomination?
Currently, it's Andrew Yang, and it'll probably stay that way. How about you?
I love Andrew Yang. We are friends. I was an early adopter of Yang's ideas. I saw his TED Talk about 6 years ago,
Oh,
and
wow. That's awesome. I
yeah,
haven't even watched that.
so and I kind of forgot about him. So about a year ago, I saw him on Joe Rogan and was, wow, this guy's running for president. And I didn't
Yes,
recognize him at first, but then I realized who he was.
for
And
real.
I was all in for 2 months, and uh, I I decided to lean more towards Tulsi, but
Okay.
I'm still really supportive of Yang. I have a very good feeling that his path to nomination is really clear. I think he could win. So
Right.
I'm
I find
trying to.
Tulsi.
So it's like we're still going to push for Tulsi, but I'm trying to tell everybody who I communicate with that, hey man, yo, this guy could actually win, and let's try to be friends, all right?
Exactly. Actually, I was on a video for mental health, and then the guy that made it, his name is Jonathan Munitz. He has the Hill of Roses show. Um, he actually made a video with a Pete supporter and a Tulsi supporter also recently.
I
And
saw
we're
that.
trying to do
I
the
didn't
same
see the
thing
whole.
because, we know the difference between the establishment and the non-establishment at this point. I think it's becoming so obvious. And if we don't stick together, I don't think we'll have a voice again after this. And I don't think everybody sees how serious that is. But I think this is really one of our last chances to have a voice as the people. Um, and Tulsi is actually my second choice. I was a Bernie supporter, and I was asking about AI and automation, I think on a Bernie page, and someone was like, "Hey, have you heard about Andrew Yang?" Because everybody was like, "Ah, that's a conspiracy or whatever." And I went up, and I don't even remember exactly how it happened because I was just too excited. But Tulsi, I actually really want Tulsi to be VP. I was in the military myself, and she is on point about the corruption, and we need to deal with it because that's one of the big major factors in killing our nation right now. Long-term war is not just the veterans, it's everybody. It affects everybody.
Not only the human cost, but also the financial cost.
Of course. I
With
mean, you can see it. You can see our infrastructure falling apart, and I've been to a lot of different states. If you go around, you see it everywhere, and it's kind of a mess. And you're like, I can't believe it's 2019 right now.
yeah. Are you familiar with the peace dividend?
The peace dividend. I don't think so.
My internet connection is unstable. The peace dividend is a funding mechanism that is not a new idea. If somebody came up with it in the
So,
80s, the oh no. So the peace dividend is kind of like it's a funding mechanism where if we resolve a few of the military conflicts, some of the money that was in the military budget can be reallocated to a peace dividend. And we can use that as a funding mechanism for all the socialist stuff. So all the progressive things we want, that can come out of that. Potentially universal basic income can come out of that. But it's like I said, it's a flexible number because it comes from unused military funds. So it could be different every year. However, it's attractive to me because it's a way to implement all of the progressive things that we're talking about without the fear of raising taxes on the middle class. Because it's that money, we're already spending that money. It's just moving money around. That's it.
true.
Yeah, so I really like how Yang and Tulsi don't have anything that conflict with each other too much. They're very strong in other areas. We do
There
have
are many. There are so many people in the Yang Gang that want Tulsi and Yang to be a ticket together, and so many that would accept Tulsi and Yang or Yang and Tulsi. It's incredible how many people I've seen. The only people like I really see have trouble with it are the ones that believe like all this propaganda, that don't really understand the war in Syria or foreign conflict or any of these things, and they don't understand how complex it is. And to give perspective, I'm actually half Syrian. My father was, and I served in the army for 7 years. I went to Syria a few times in my lifetime, so I understand some of what's going on. But even with that background, I still don't understand enough. And so Americans thinking that they can know what's going on over there and how complex it is just ridiculous. And the thing about going with Assad thing, I really want to talk about that straight up right now. I do not like Assad. I do not support him. However, and there's a lot of reasons for that. When I went to Syria, there was this big religious war going on too between the Sunnis and the Shiites, and minority over majority power, and etc. But either way, there's so much destruction right now that you can't just keep fighting. It has to be a time for negotiation. And the fact is, during the Iraq War, Afghanistan, we did not try to compromise enough, in my opinion. And the same thing we're doing here in Syria. And that's really the problem. It's like, oh yeah, we don't have a reason to compromise. No, there is always a reason to try and compromise, even with it. Yes, even with a dictator. You know, and putting that out there like, this is a dictator, we shouldn't compromise. Where did that come from? Like, how do we ever get anywhere without fighting if we don't talk to people that have different opinions than us, if we don't understand the culture and why people are making the decisions they are?
Well, on the far left and the far right, what you want to do is, if you don't agree with somebody, you just isolate yourself, okay? But everybody, I think most people totally get the idea that if you have a disagreement with somebody, you got to talk about it, because the alternative is conflict. The alternative is war.
You're cutting out a lot.
Sorry. Okay. I think most people get that you have to talk to people that you don't like if you want to get something done and avoid war. And the Tulsi's meeting with Assad it's sold to the public like it was some sort of diplomacy thing, but it really wasn't. It wasn't like a two-way thing. It was a fact-finding mission, and it's not like she interrogated him. It's just kind of like, he was like, hey, I got this info. She got info from him, and then, that's about it. She didn't give up any state secrets or make any promises. It wasn't like a diplomatic meeting in the normal sense. And within the
she is not the sole person right now in the military to act or feel this way. I cannot say names, but I know leaders, and I know leaders that know other leaders, and not everyone is agreeing in the military, especially in regards to the Space Force. And some people are being kicked out, leaving, all kinds of stuff, because there's so much conflict. And what should we do with the military right now? And a lot of people don't even realize that is happening. Tulsi Gabbard is not the sole person being like, hey, I'm the only one that thinks there's something wrong. I mean, there's plenty of people in the military that are very aware of it, but when you're in there and you can't talk politically and you're kind of stuck, and then people like us that are veterans, some of us still have signed secret clearance things that we can't talk about and things like this, and there's even some Vietnam veterans I've talked to that don't even know what they still can talk or not talk about. So it gets really crazy, and you don't want to sacrifice your own security and the security of your family, especially as veterans that are already struggling with suicide and all kinds of stuff. And the military family is also struggling. I mean, there's a big thing going on with bases having terrible housing, generally wide, and food stamps and all kinds of stuff that military families are having to rely on. So it's not a one person thing, and like, I feel like the only people that are really saying anything against this are just two freaking bubble life as an insult. It is a privilege, but some people have been privileged enough to not have to see the tragedies. Excuse me, I've been sick. To see the tragedies and the realities out there, and the complexity the most. The complexity is certainly something that's missed. And I think people just don't want to do the hard work and coming to the conclusion through complexity versus just wanting to have a straight up answer.
The corporate controlled media really wants to make it look like Tulsi is alone on this. And once in a while things slip out. Like there was a professor that was on MSNBC or something and I don't know how this guy was let in there, and he'll probably never be allowed to be on TV again, but he like went into it and he spelled out all these details about this like CIA mission to overthrow Assad and the chemical weapons attacks being staged and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That and they were just looking at him like, oh no, he shouldn't be talking about this. And it went straight to a guy who did damage control for it. He said, oh, well, we all have Middle East fatigue, and, you know, don't worry about it. This guy, he's getting mixed up about things. And the corporate media really wants people to feel safe. You know, they don't want to get anybody thinking outside the box on any of this stuff. And
on the other hand, too, though, like me talking about this right now with you, it is not safe for me. And I've been holding this off, one for, you know, because I'm autistic and it's kind of hard for me to understand and do social things, and, you know, my mental and physical illnesses. But also another thing is I've been really afraid of kickback, not just from people, but governments. I've lived in Saudi Arabia. I've been to Syria. I've lived in the United States. Like, there's a lot of different directions where if I'm speaking about something people don't want to hear, I am definitely a threat. And I don't have a big protection or anything. I'm not Andrew Yang, and I'm not Tulsi Gabbard. They have protection. I don't. But at what point, when I'm not going to make the sacrifice, especially with a lot of things going on right now that are completely not right, talk of eugenics, white supremacy, even black extremist groups, like, oh, there's too much chaos right now where if I don't say something, I am not being a patriot. And I don't want to make that sacrifice because I'm a single mother. I don't have protection, but I hope people will help and protect me, because I am really afraid to speak out about this. And the one biggest thing is Saudi Arabia. I've lived there, and it's abhorrent. Like, the fact that they're not taking any responsibility for the root of terrorism and for bringing more refugees, not taking responsibility at all, benefiting anybody at all in the end. And we obviously know how corrupt and, you know, murderous they can be. But it's all money in the end. And I don't know how many people are turning such a blind eye. And to be honest with you, I am scared to death about mentioning it, because I know how I know, I've seen, I've heard, I've known people that have been killed, that have their families been killed. And even though I'm in the United States, I'm starting to feel like I'm not safe anymore for speaking out. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. It's not just the PC stuff. It's like, can I even say my experience anymore without being it twisted to the fact that somebody wants to kill me at some point? You know, it's a scary time. And I don't think the privileged see that for people like us that have been around, that have been involved, that know too much.
you are very brave. Thank you for your service. I have never served, so you are definitely more vulnerable than I am, and I have very little to lose by speaking out. But I really want to be able to know the information, you know, because I have, in my past, you know, I got really wrapped up in conspiracy theories, and I was vocal about things that might not have been true, and that was embarrassing. And so with this election cycle, I'm really interested into, I believe a lot of the facts are purposely hidden from us, and a lot of the information that we do have access to has been compromised. So within that, I have found that we can always manage the way we feel, because the relative reality of whatever any voter thinks is going on is dependent on how the fake news they see relates to the context of the life that they're living. And I do believe every support base of each of these candidates is seeing different shades of fake news. And something that I really like about the YangGang is that a lot of these people work in the tech community. And
You're cutting out again.
Sorry, I really like how the Andrew Yang's base.
You're gonna have to find it.
I really like how Andrew Yang's base. Most of these people are coming
right
from the tech community. My internet connection is unstable.
Yeah.
I need
It's
to
okay. We're doing this for the first time, though. I was actually surprised you want to record, but that's okay with me. I actually prefer things to come out more naturally. If I over plan things, uh, and it's supposed to be a natural conversation, it's not good. There's a time and place for that, and I'm working on those. But like I said, I've been sick, so you know, I'm ready to jump off on a lot of things because I've seen too much, and I need a better life. And my kids need a better life, and they deserve a better future, and so does everybody else's kids. And I'm tired of seeing, this division and this chaos in this country. And I've seen other places fall apart, and I don't want to see that here, especially since I tried so hard to come back to my country. I had to fight a lot to come back here and get out of, certain traps. And now I feel like I'm running back into another trap sometimes. And I just all I've ever wanted was freedom. And I feel like everybody deserves that. Freedom to make their own choices, freedom to have the correct information, to come up with their own decisions, everything. And you mentioned, people also were getting distracted from propaganda, a divisive and distraction propaganda. And that is probably part of the problem, where they don't want people to pay attention, because we talk about UBI. And I was saying, even before I found Andrew Yang, I was saying the government's going to owe it to us. I started saying that to people. I said, they're going to owe it to us, because we're going to realize how much they sacrifice us for corporate America or whatever in their own interests. And we're going to see that they owe us this shit. Like, it's literally, we helped build this country. Our grandparents, slavery, everything in our blood, we all built this shit. And we're being, shat on right now. Exactly, like, shat on by them. Like, and people are still caught up in this trap with them. And it's like, how can you not see at this point how insane everything is? Like, where is the people's power anymore? We've always had to accept crumbs, but like, we can only do it for so long. And with technology coming, we will not win this time. And people need to get that. We will not win this time if we don't have a voice now.
One of my favorite things that Andrew says is that you are a shareholder in the wealthiest economy in the history of the world. You know? Think about that.
And I love that you mentioned that, because even Kuwaitis get, it's not even just Alaska. There's Arab countries and there's other countries around the world that get a dividend for their citizens. And I've noticed is like, it is a special thing to get, and then it gives more incentive for people to become legalized citizens.
My internet connection is unstable again. And I don't even know if you're still there. It might be over for us. Well, that was fun. And I think I'm going to take it back to Twitter. Until she comes back, I'm going to just see what's going on here. It's still working. We're back.
Okay.
So whatever we said in the past minute, we're going to have to just forget about that or come back or something.
I guess.
You are a shareholder in the wealthiest economy in the history of the world.
Yeah.
This is your money, like all of us collectively are putting in, and this is something that really needs to happen because, all right, like there are people who try to deny that this automation thing is as big as Andrew makes it seem. And, famous economist Paul Krugman, have you ever read him on Twitter at all? He, I don't remember if he was
out again.
Paul Krugman is an economist. He might have been Fed chair of the Federal Reserve or something, but Paul Krugman believes that Andrew is exaggerating about the threat of automation. And to me, that just sounds like he's being a climate change denier about it. I think 10 years out, it's going to be exactly what Andrew has been warning us about. People in the tech community have seen this, and Andrew's not the first person to talk about it. And But
I think the part that people are missing on that, though, is they just hear automation, and they're not aware of how far AI is getting. And this conversation about AI really needs to be made so people get why so many jobs are not going to come back. Like so many things. I've been trying to tell people an AI has outperformed a surgeon. Oh, I don't want a robot doing my surgeon. Well, that AI outperformed a surgeon, not once, not twice, but multiple times. And then we had an AI that beat a human at Go. And if anybody understands that game, it is like unbelievably hard to beat a human because of certain, the way it functions. And it has to be looked into on the maths on that. And there's numerous other things. If anybody ever checks out Hanson Robotics, alone, to see how they've been inputting in emotional intelligence just in regards to the facial features, very intricate robotics, and then, AI picks up by looking at other people and their expressions, and then they can mimic it. It's crazy. And people really need to start looking into that. Actually, I got into it because I was with an ex, and we were both interested in it at the time. And I got further into it, started reading Time magazines. I started reading scientific articles and journals about it, just, going all into it, talking to people about it. But I think that's the biggest thing. People just don't see the in-depth distance that AI is going and how quickly it will. And not just AI, you got quantum computing, you got cryptocurrency, you got nanotechnology, you got all these things that are about to jump us forward very quickly. But at the same time, they're very beneficial, but at the same time, if we don't, like you said, have a investment in it, a future in it, then we will be the ones that are being used but not receiving anything out of it. And I completely understand from the Bernie side about the socialism, the democratic socialism. And I say to those people, if you want to get to that point, you got to start somewhere. And I don't know if America's ready, and I don't know if America will ever want it. But if you want it, if somebody out there is a democratic socialist and you want to get to that point, you cannot start right there. You're not going to have everybody on your team. You need to have a realistic strategy. And the most realistic strategy is exactly what Andrew Yang is proposing: an innovation and a human-centered capitalism together. And it's the only thing that we can go forward in the future, that it's already coming, and ensure that we have stability and ensure that we're going to be taken care of also.
I really love Bernie. I was there 110% in 2016, and it makes me sad because most of the things that Bernie is talking about should have been done 40 years ago. You know, like his proposal of how to handle healthcare really should have happened 40 years ago. And unfortunately, that is not the direction that we took. And, there's a little bit of nostalgia there. They feel like this stuff should be like this already, and it should be like this, and they want to make it like the way it should have been. However, we got to go forward. We are going forward whether we like it or not. And I use the term climate change denier because 20 years ago, there were people trying to warn us that, hey, this is happening. And a lot of people trying to protect their interests. Nah, this isn't really happening, or it's not as bad as you say. There's people still trying to say that. And with automation, it's very similar, where in order to be able to see it, you look at self-checkout machines. We're starting to see self-driving cars. We have robocallers. It's already here. And 10 years out, we're going to look at each other and we're going to be sorry that we didn't get in front of it. But so there may be a little bit of fear-mongering there, even if it's warranted. But there's also this aspect of hope that comes with Yang, where he speaks to forward-thinking kind of. I really like how universal basic income, the way he proposes it, will give us just a minimal buffer room to be able to move around and resituate ourselves in the economy. Because it's not enough to live on. $1,000 a month is like, I've been living on approximately that for almost a decade, but I'm really creative, and I don't recommend this kind of lifestyle for everybody. I don't think anybody's actually going to be able to live on it alone. But there's people right now who have nothing.
Yeah.
And like I said about the transitioning, there's a lot of people who are stuck right now, and they could become active participants in the economy if we just gave them a little bit of buffer to be able to move around a little bit,
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And I talk about homelessness a lot because, I even had a relative that wanted to be homeless. It's just some people have, like you were saying, as an artist, I kind of understand that. I have a stable lifestyle, but it's hard to be an artist without instability. You kind of need that to stay creative and to keep getting different perspectives. And if people don't understand that, there's not really much you can say. But on top of that, artists are not even recognized enough in our culture or seen as a big contributor to our society. And I try to remind people, I was taking pre-calculus and I had to start drawing again just for myself to be able to get the concepts down. And I'm not really sure what it does, but I think the abstractness of art takes your brain to an area where it can rewire and then restructure logic at some point. And I really think we're just completely missing that side. In order to have stability, you also have to have instability, and that's kind of how our universe kind of works. But everything we're doing is completely against our own natures. And that's okay to make change, but we got to be aware of those changes because we're making so many of them. And I lost track of the point I was trying to get to, so apologize.
Okay.
And my kids are kind of rummaging around.
I have to go soon, but moving forward, what can we do to get either Yang or Tulsi elected?
Well, first I want to ask you what my kids are misbehaving. We all have ADHD, so it's not easy to just stay calm for a while. I think Yang's strategy is really great. And I think Tulsi just has a lot against her right now, and it's not surprising because the second you say anything about the military-industrial complex, it's a wonder if you're still alive. So that's one thing. To get them elected, I think we need to do this. We need to do the same thing that we've always done in history. The people need to get fucking serious, and they need to start talking to each other, whether they agree on everything or not. They need to start understanding why people are coming from the perspective they are. And we've had a lot of division, like I said, divisive propaganda. We've kind of had a divisive lifestyle for a while. We don't really have community. I can tell you right now, I still don't know my neighbors well. And I tried, but people are just so, it's like there's a barrier there, Well, I guess you see that. Like, I'm not really.
Do you have any friends or family who are Trump supporters?
Can you hold on 1 second? I'll be right back. I gotta do mom stuff. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Sure. She's got to do mom stuff, okay? So, as you can see, this woman's taking care of her kid. She really wants to do art. There's not much room for it, Imagine what she could do with $1,000 a month, And there's a lot of overlap between Andrew Yang's base and Tulsi Gabbard's base, okay? Like, the things that both of these candidates are strong on appeals to a very different type of person. And there's plenty of us who can see both sides, okay? And I do think Marianne Williamson is important, too. Do you ever look at it? Yeah.
Yes.
I see, her holistic patriotism kind of ties all this together, because if you have one side of the brain thinking about military strategy and you have this other side of the brain trying to think about, the fiscal policy stuff, I like what Marianne brings because it kind of manages the way that we feel about it and how it's up to us to have the power to make all this work. And it's like a different angle. It's very similar to what Andrew and Tulsi have to bring, but it's I can't quite summarize it. Marianne is so complex, and like Tulsi, she is the most hated person in this race, and she has so many barriers. Like,
Oh yeah.
I do, as crazy as it sounds, even though Tulsi has a lot of resistance, I do see a path. It's unlikely, but I do see a path, and I'm still fighting for it. But with Marianne, I don't really see how it could happen. Not
No.
yet, but, you know, I'm still engaged with her support base, and I really talk about Marianne a lot. I think she's important.
Well, I think that some Democrats, liberals, progressives are under recognizing Tulsi Gabbard because of the propaganda, and also I think maybe they're afraid, a lot of people, to admit the corruption that's happening in their government and to admit to what's happening in this war. Now, like we all can admit, terrorism is real. It's there. And it's there in the Arab world, and it's here in different ways in the United States. And there's a reason that all this conflict is going on. We're hitting a paradigm shift. There's a new global communication, socialization, jobs, lifestyles, everything, and chaotic, I guess you'd say. And then you have places where they've been dictatorships and people have no word and no say, and they also have no control of what's happening to them, and they're just trying to survive. If you think about it, the majority of the world right now are literally just trying to survive. And some of them, a lot of the world, I think it's maybe 20% are starving. I mean, if you just think about that alone, that a sixth of the world is starving. Like, not even, and we're not talking about hungry, we're talking about starving. These people are going weeks without food, and many of them dying. And the numbers of, and I think we need to talk about global things too, because this is what our world is about to become. All the people saying globalization, globalization, these are all these nations that just don't want to lose control of their people anymore. Globalization is here. There's no magic thing that will stop it. It is already here. It's been here for some freaking time. And literally what is freaking the whole world out is the fact that you and I can talk instantaneously. I can talk to somebody instantaneously. And that's why the biggest threat is always going to be, no matter where we are in history, freedom of speech. Because this is our new freedom of speech. To be able to talk to someone across the world instantaneously. And it's being threatened by nations and governments through propaganda, through a dictatorship, through everything. And we can't keep seeing it in such a small sense. It makes logical sense that this would happen at a time right now. And
We are in an
understand just
information war.
things are kind of more mechanisms, and we just got to adjust the mechanisms.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
We're in an information war. There's a war on information.
Absolutely. And you know what makes humans different really from all the other animals is the way we acquire information and share it. And we're going through our own change of social evolution, really, in a sense. And there are some people that don't deal with it as well as others, and there are some people that benefit from it. And we talk about me being autistic or ADHD. I actually have benefited from Facebook groups and things like that because I feel like more comfortable with talking to people. I feel like I don't have to verbally or non-verbally appear in a certain way. And it's got me to the point where I met so many people like me that I'm like, I'm not going to freaking pretend anymore. It's actually hurt my body to hold back all the stimming, all the movement, to be forced to have eye contact with somebody. I appear so stupid because I'm focusing on the eye contact for so long. And if they just don't met me, if they just accept that the fact I don't have to look at them, I can actually listen to what someone's saying and digest it fully, you know? And then there's a big thing about time. It's like nobody wants to give you time to think things over. There's such a rush in this world, and you are seen as stupid when you're not in this freaking bubble that we've created for people. And it's not just neurodivergent people, it's definitely neurotypical people too that are like the boxes are just so small. You have this problem with the male and the female war going on, and every freaking divisive war that's out there is set up so we don't communicate. So we don't do this, what we're doing right here. And I'm going to be honest with you. I literally lost a friend that I really love to talk to because I'm a feminist, you know? And it's so weird because we talk about so many things, but, you know, I didn't hold it against him. I was like, I understand, you know, it's just, I can't say anything. I can only tell you what I've been through, what I've seen women go through, and that I'm not generalizing either side. But, you know, I try to remind people that millions and millions of women are in sex trafficked every day. So there is a clear distinction, general-wise, who is really suffering. And it's not really him or her, but we got to come to the realization that women usually are the nurturers, and they usually are the ones raising their kids and raising their parents and so on and so forth. And it may change or may not change. But right now, that's kind of the case. And if women are being harmed, in the end, everyone's being harmed. You know, and I've noticed in a lot of relationships that I've been in, a lot of the men struggle because their mom struggled. And I see things in my own son because I'm struggling. You know, it's just a toxic cycle that just keeps continuing until we decide to end it.
Yeah. As a Democrat, like, you know, we are all left wing, right? You know, we're all on the left. We should be. So, like,
I'm an independent.
okay, you're are you a left
and a centrist?
Independent? Are you left? Well, you're going to vote Democrat, though.
Well, yeah, because, you know, see, like, of course I'm going to vote Democrat, because the thing is, civil rights are always going to outweigh anything for me. And I understand where Republicans come from. I'm living in small town Texas, Bible Belt right now. All right. So, and I have mixed kids, you know, and I'm half Arab. And at first, you know, I can blend in as a white person. So, you know, I guess you'd say kind of luckier than other people sometimes. And people don't want to hear these realities, but they're true. And it's time for people to start letting people talk for themselves. That's autistic people, that's Black people, that's Hispanic people, that's Asian. Their own experience is theirs, and nobody should speak on behalf of them or think they have a right to. But we're talking about being in this mentality of far right and far left. I took Texas government. You look at the frontier life. You look at all kinds of stuff that Texans had to be, and you kind of understand where they come from at one point, why they want to be hunters, why they want their guns. If you have any land on Texas, I'm going to tell you right now, you better have a damn gun. I mean, you're not going to survive at one point if you don't have a gun and you have land in Texas. There are numerous things that will kill you at some point. So when other people from other places see Texans, you know, I think they don't understand the background. And the same thing with far right people not understanding far left people living in very urban city-like areas, something I can't even survive. I give props to anybody that lives in a city. God bless you. You're amazing. I would die. But maybe not. I don't know. I haven't even tried it yet. But I can't do a lot of people at once. But yeah, it's just the fact that people are not seeing each other, and this has everything to do with not having enough money. All my friends and me, we can't even visit each other right now. We don't have that extra income to build connection right now. We're all working our ass off. If you got 70-some plus percent living paycheck to paycheck, who the hell is visiting another state? Who the hell is traveling at all? Nobody. And that's a big part of the problem, the fact that we're not seeing each other's experiences in real time.
The division is a huge problem. There's so many ways to split people, and they're trying to get all of us separated from each other so that they can continue to keep doing what they do.
Yeah.
The powers that be. And the biggest threat to the powers that be are the candidates who promote unity.
Right.
You know, like Yang and Williamson and Tulsi and even people like Amy Klobuchar are scary to a lot of the left because they're not afraid to talk to their Republican neighbors and be like, hey, we can, you know, we're all Americans. And in the end, you know, we do have to unite. And ideally, we would have a president who, like, you know, kind of works for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want another 4 years of division. And that's why I am
a president is supposed to be non-partisan.
Yeah, and that's why
Absolutely.
it's really hard for me to let go of my emotional attachment to Bernie Sanders. But
Yeah, well, yeah, I hear you
it's
on
like
that.
I truly love and trust him, and I
Mhm.
want him to be president. But it's another 4 years of us fighting each other.
Yes.
He's
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because, and I know people don't want to hear this, but I'm sorry. I'm that brutally honest person. And I don't want to blame the person. I want to start with this. I understand propaganda. I understand being born with instilled mindsets. I've had so many things I had to get rid of myself subconsciously. I get it, people. I get it. Okay? But
He
listen,
gets it, people.
you can change. You can change. You need to observe those mindsets and you need to talk to people, because you can change. And I understand how propaganda can get to you, how these instilled mindsets can get to you, how the barriers of not seeing things can get to you. But you can decide. This is the time and day and age where you can decide to change that. And the far left and the far right have become very, very far left, far right, where it's very angry talking. It's very divisive talking. It's very him versus or us versus them. Okay, if we want to talk about Pink Floyd, hey, us versus them is being used against us yet again. It's not new. If you go through any of your history books, it's the same shit over and over and over again, just with different tools at different times in different ways. And this is the time that we're not going to accept the crumbs anymore. And I keep saying that because if you look at any time in history, that's exactly what we did. We accepted crumbs when it came to slavery. We accepted crumbs when it came to indentured servitude. We accepted crumbs when it came to child labor. We accepted crumbs when it came to women voting and women later. We accepted crumbs when it came to every fucking war that we were been in. And we need to stop that shit. It's time that we need to stop eating this garbage that we're being fed. There are more of us than them. Why are they doing all this? You want to say they? Who's they? Okay, the ones with power, the ones with control, the ones that want to maintain it. It's that simple. And why are they doing it? It's human fucking nature. And some people just don't give a fuck. That's really all it comes down to. And the thing is, there's more of us than them. And the reason they do all these things, the reason they input all this long-term instilled mindsets is because that's the only way that they can have power over a large number of people. The same way that any leader has done in all of history. But we are evolving our brains, I think, enough to come to the conclusion where we don't need this anymore. We don't, and nobody wants to hear this. They're like, oh, you're a libertarian. I'm not actually even a libertarian. I just feel like we're coming to a point with technology that we can be accountable much more for ourselves. And we can be a lot more peaceful and a lot more accepting, and we don't have to have so much split division and only cooperation between these split divisions. There's so much potential that we are just throwing away, and people are literally dying and suffering, and that's not acceptable. Maybe I'm sitting in my comfy little freaking room right now not being heard at all, but I know there's people out there that are suffering every second of their life. And it's hard when you've been out there and saw it to know that it's still going on while you're sitting in your little comfort. And as much as I say to other people, I am too, I know my privileges. I know them, from hot water to a comfy bed at night to even a house to live in. I know. And I want to be better and I want to do better because I don't want to see other people in that situation.
Service to others over
I
service
get pretty
to self.
emotional. I'm sorry. I'm a very intense person.
Hey, well, this is a serious topic, and that's why we're in it, because we need help. There's things that we got to do for ourselves, and there's things that we want, but we also see how this could be good for other people, and we see how there are people suffering, and we want to try to be part of the solution. We see people like, I don't know, how do you feel about Joe Biden? Like,
Oh, I would like to talk about this. Now I don't hate the guy. I actually think he's a pretty good guy, and I think that if anything that he did, people got to understand that when you're in government, you're not going to be able to make decisions on your own. You're going to have to sacrifice. I think a lot of people have told me, "Hey, you should be in government." I said, "Fuck no." And that means I'm going to have to sacrifice my soul at some point, and I'm not going to do that shit. Andrew Yang has so far got away with it, and that's because he had a lot of good people on his side. And some of us don't have that, you know, it's because that's part of privilege. And I'm sure he even says, like, literally, he accepts that privilege. So Joe Biden needs to be looked at. I think a lot of people have mentioned that he may have a health condition, and I have a grandfather with certain mental health conditions, and I think it's kind of abusive at this point that he's not being checked out, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I at least think that someone should check him out.
I think
Some of the ways he stutters and talks, and it's kind of indicative of I don't want to say the word, but there's something there. And on top of that, I think his vision is just too far in the past. I do agree a lot with Andrew Yang, and he said in one of the interviews recently, I'm sorry if I don't remember which one, somebody asked him about the age thing, and he said, absolutely, like, I'm not trying to be ageist, but you got to understand that you have to be from a time that understands the technology and economics of that time. And some people that are elderly maybe can do it, but if they're clearly not in that time frame, then no, it's not even about their age. It's just the fact that they don't understand. There are plenty of people that are 80 plus. I mean, I worked at an independent senior living for 6 months. There are plenty of seniors that actually do understand technology pretty well, and they understand the future, and they understand all that because they put their time into learning about it. But at the same time, it's hard to expect seniors to do that. They have a lot to put up with. And to deal with in regards to their health and just their longevity. But absolutely, I think, and I think that when it comes to, I think what bugs me the most about Joe Biden is his bragging about being a representative for Black people, you know, and I just get so freaking uncomfortable with that. A lot of it kind of doesn't feel like direct racism. It feels like an underlying mindset of kind of racism where, you know, you feel like you have the superiority to talk about people, and just because you've had connections with them. And don't get me wrong, I've sat with tons of Black communities and their churches and, you know, the families, of course, my kids, you know, but even then, I still go on pages of biracial children, of Black community, to get their advice and to talk to them, because there's no fucking way ever in hell that me, with this white skin, will fucking say that I understand my child's experience and ever will, because I won't. And nobody has a right to say that, especially not a presidential candidate. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's elderly abuse that they're putting Joe Biden through this. I think he doesn't
For
actually
real.
want to do this. I
Yeah.
think the people that are propping him up are putting pressure on him.
Well, do you know, if he is going through an elderly mental crisis, the ones we don't want to mention right now because I don't want to be accusatory and I'm not a doctor. If he's going through those, it is very possible he can't be 100% aware. Some people know that when they're going through that kind of thing, they're kind of living in their own fantasy anyway. I have a friend where his grandfather is going through it, mine is going through it, and they live in a completely different world. So you can literally have them run a presidential candidacy and have an issue like that, and they may not even be aware of it. And that's why I kind of see it as abuse, as long as they don't evaluate it at all. It is abuse, in my opinion. And like I said, I'm not a doctor or anything. I've only had experience in senior living. But this is the kind of abuse that goes unseen. When it regards to anybody with disability, the elderly, women, children, it's really people speaking on behalf of other people. And that's abuse in itself. And especially when in regards to autism, because we don't always have a voice, an actual voice. And there are symbols you can use. There are all kinds of ways to communicate. And we don't need to keep throwing people in these boxes and then taking complete authority over them. But that's kind of the pattern of our culture, and that's what's being done to us by our own government. And that's why so many people respond to Trump the way they do, because it's part of, you know, a culture too that you're picking up on. And I think the only people that really diverge from that are either divergent of culture itself, or they've seen enough to come up with broader conclusions.
Yeah, I got no problem talking about Joe Biden's cognitive ability or anything like that, because, you know, Elizabeth Warren is in this race, and she's close to his age, and she's young and chipper. You know, she acts like she's a 20-something, and, you know, I have the feeling Elizabeth Warren is going to live to be 130 years old. I mean, like, if I got no problem talking about Joe Biden losing his mind if he's standing next to another person in his age group who is totally clear and energized. So I don't think it's unfair at all to discuss Joe Biden's cognitive problems.
I think we should talk about Warren next, though. And why not Warren? Because, okay, let's start with the women thing. We get this whole big woman argument. She's a woman. We need a woman, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my God. Trust me, I'm a feminist to the max. You don't even know. I want a woman to be president, but I will not sacrifice the needs of our country for that want. Period. End of story. And that's my decision. Second, she does not have the right strategy to get the money from who we need to get. And Andrew Yang is making this very clear, and he's 100%. I did taxes for 3 years, 2 years at international level. They weren't just normal taxes either. There were military service members mostly that had multiple states in them. They had rental properties. They had overseas money. They had overseas citizenship. Some of them didn't have to pay. Some of them did. It was just so complex. And there was a lot of business tax involved. And then I actually had my own LLC for just a short time, but I looked into a lot of the business code on that. So you cannot, you will not, and this is why those countries Andrew Yang mentions that didn't work out. You will not be able to get money from these people. You will not. There is so easy in the tax system we have to evade it. When you have a VAT tax that is not regressive with UBI, it's different. They have complete accountability, and they have to. They will have no choice. And in the end, it is actually beneficial to them as well as us. More accountability means less money wasted. And being around the country and having so many jobs and in the military, everywhere you go, it's just enormous the amount of money we waste on things because our strategy is shit.
Yeah. Well, you have exposure to some people who plan on voting for Trump, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have any faith at all that if he nominated Liz, she could actually win against Trump?
Warren? No.
Yeah,
no, absolutely not. Right. And it's not even a woman thing. It's okay. Okay. Let me tell you what the slogan was for Ted Cruz in Texas. And Beto O'Rourke came very close this time of winning with him. But Ted Cruz had this very simple slogan that a lot of Texans will just jump on. And he knew it. It was tough as Texas. And let me tell you this for starters. I actually really respect Elizabeth Warren because she was in the education system. Anybody that has dedicated to the education system, I will highly respect. But I do feel like in some instances, she does not understand economy enough. So that's where she'll lose very much because Texans are not ignorant about economy. They aren't ignorant about how it works and what they need. They actually had to do so much on their fucking own, and this is why they have the mentality they do. They have a very independent libertarian mindset for that reason. They don't like bureaucracy for that reason. You know, they did a lot on their fucking own, you know, and for that reason, they don't want all this bullshit. And yes, they'll absolutely choose Trump over Warren. There's so many people saying if Andrew Yang or Tulsi does not get the nomination as a Republican, they will vote for Donald Trump again. That scares the fuck out of me. But at the same time, I kind of know where they're coming from. And that makes it even worse. Like, I understand why they want Trump again. Because he's at least thinking economy-wise, and at least for some percentage of people, even in some of the middle class, he might be actually helping some of them. But what is he destroying in the end? What powers is he giving to people that shouldn't have power? That's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Donald Trump as much as the people that are sticking all their fingers into our government right now and trying to put their religious agenda, their whatever agenda is coming out of it. It's just a mess right now. And that's what I'm really worried about in the end. But definitely, no. If Elizabeth Warren makes the nomination, Donald Trump will win again. If you hear me, America, if Elizabeth Warren makes the nomination, Donald Trump will win again.
Listen to this woman, all right? A vote for Elizabeth Warren is a vote for Donald Trump. Everybody
Most of the
knows
people around here are Republican, okay? In most of the small
people.
towns in Texas, they're Republican. It's hard enough for them to be convinced to ever vote for a Democrat, ever. Because the Democrat name to them is just dirty. And at this point, you can't even blame them with how media has been freaking polluted. You know, on both sides, they're definitely polluted. But, you know, they don't see that also. You know, they don't see their side of pollution either, just like the liberals don't see their side of pollution on their media side. But that's exactly why the media does what they do, because they know these people's mindsets. And I'm convinced that in early 2014, a couple years, and yes, this might sound even like a conspiracy, but this is just a theory, honestly. In early 2014, I was still in the military. I had just started getting on Facebook more often. And I started to see a bunch of groups that obviously were not the kind of groups they were posing to be. And I'm in marketing, and it also appeared that they were trying to provoke people in order to get their opinion. And I feel that like there was a ton of groups on Facebook and other mediums that were posing to be certain organizations in order to collect public opinion before this election took place. And a lot of them were evangelical or liberal mindsets and all kinds of different things. They were very targeted. And I was very wary all the way back in 2014. One of the groups I went on was posing to be a religious organization. And I found out they were posing because I did the research on who this person was, and it just didn't add up. And a few organizations had numbers and locations that weren't even real. I did a little bit.
Broken up again. Okay, well.
My research.
I didn't catch any of that. You're going to have to repeat yourself in a second. I'm sorry.
Because I know how dangerous propaganda is. I really do. Trump supporting.
I have very limited experience in marketing, but yeah, I mean, people who are into that can see this stuff very clearly.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think so. You know, Elizabeth Warren is not viable in the context of a general election. And
nope. No, sir.
No. But as for nominating her, you know, I don't think the biggest thing that scares me is the manipulation of statistics in order to support your narrative.
Yes, and I think polls need to be looked at. For instance, like me as a veteran, when you're a veteran, you move, I think the average is over 10 times after you get out of service. And when you're moving a lot, you're not always registered to vote, et cetera, and you've only been registered for so long. So that's a whole part of the population that is probably not getting polled because of that continuous movement.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, and then there's like so many other people that get left out of polling because they don't have a landline, they don't have a certain account, they don't have a certain kind of email address, just all these things that make it very targeted. Just like gerrymandering is in a way, but it needs to be looked at seriously, because definitely people have been mentioning that they did get polled, and somebody doesn't know Andrew Yang's name yet, or Tulsi Gabbard's name yet, or anybody's name yet. What does that do for the polling? I mean, at least for the polling, they, even if they don't know them and they don't poll for them, they can hear their name and they can be an informed citizen and know that person's running as a candidate. And especially at this time where there's so many candidates running, you can't sit back and be like, oh, just people need to do their own research. No. It is the responsibility of the party, and it's the responsibility of the candidates to get their full message out. And Andrew Yang is 100% right about that. And Tulsi Gabbard is 100%, and he's 100% right about coming together and stop being so divisive. But each side just keeps pushing this divisive narrative. We hate Donald Trump. We hate these people. We hate the liberals. We hate the blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't end. And people in the middle are just fucking want to throw up. You know, we're sick of it.
The Yang base and the Tulsi base, when combined, I believe exceeds the intelligence capabilities of the other bases, and that's why we will be successful.
That's perhaps true, and I think that our technology is changing to favor certain people. And I really don't have a supremacist attitude ever. I'm a biology science major, and I study evolution, and I don't believe that at all. But I do know that certain environments will favor certain people.
Well, okay. Well, the reason why I say that is because YangGang, with their data intelligence and ability to know what's going on, combined with the Tulsi crowd's where'd it go? I did some intel on who was working for Mayor Pete, and
yeah,
I have lists of
wow.
Mark Zuckerberg gave him 2 people. One of them a senior digital analytics advisor, but the other one, Nina, she's a former machine learning engineer. So
wow.
Mayor Pete has on staff someone who can write AI and neural networks and all that shit. So he has software engineers on staff. And so Mayor Pete is leveraging the tools of big tech to try to do some psychological false flag operations to break Andrew Yang's base from within.
That's definitely I wouldn't say, because I don't have the proof in front of me, but it's definitely possible. And I would say it's funny because I was just telling you I'm a biology science major, but because of my disability, I haven't been able to go to school for it to do the labs. But I'm really seriously considering getting into software engineer because I see the danger side of AI, and I love innovation. Trust me. I mean, my dad was an engineer. I love innovation, but there are very big dangers to AI. And I think one of the biggest coming out is input bias. Just like a human being, because they were designed. 1988 was the official year, the year I was born, that they were designed. They were literally designed to learn the way humans do. And this is through a specific kind of pattern recognition and observation, and then coming to a certain conclusion over time. Well, if you put input incorrect information, just like a human being, the AI will come out with an incorrect solution or conclusion. And they're flawless in a way, sort of like the scientific method is flawless, but the scientists can be biased and they can have an initial bias hypothesis. That's sort of what's happening, and I don't think a lot of people see that danger, and I do, and it's already being used. And so I wouldn't even be surprised with what you said. I don't have the evidence, so I can't say for myself that it's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. You know. And not only that, he uses typical propaganda, where there was the article about where he said that black people aren't voting for him because he's gay, basically. And they used 1 or 2 black people to agree with that. And I was like, oh, you're speaking over the whole entire black population from 1 or 2 black people, and you're trying to say you're not racist.
Whenever anybody,
but white people don't do that shit.
Whenever anybody says that any demographic is leaning towards Biden or not leaning towards Pete, I don't want to believe that, because I feel like that's corporate media propaganda to get people, to prevent people from getting away from Biden.
Of course it is, because you never listen to 1 or 2 people in that freaking population. It's never right to. I mean, what does Andrew Yang even do? He said, I can't speak for all my Asian people. He says that over and over and over and over fucking again. And you have white people speaking on behalf of black people. And then you have white people using 2 or 3 black people to speak on the whole entire population. It's ridiculous. That itself is the racism. And this is the part where the underlying mindsets come in. It's been instilled in white people for so long that they don't always see it's happening. It's so normal that they don't see the bias in it. They're like, oh yeah, this 1 or 2 black persons saw that. Especially like Trump. You look at the 2 black people, I don't want to mention that he has representing them, okay? And they appear very, ghetto, kind of outspoken, all this stuff. And those are the only black people some white people see on Fox TV. And I had an aunt that's what she saw, and that's what she saw black people to be. And it is propaganda, because it is representing what these people are in a very indirect way, and it's purposeful. It is not a joke. You know, I mean, you could argue, well, those are regular black people, so they can be who they are. No, they're not. They're not representing everybody. And you guys know that you're showing this to a population of people that do not regularly see the majority of the population, and therefore will come to the conclusion that this is what they're like.
I want to take a step back and mention Mayor Pete and Elizabeth Warren again. Mayor Pete and Elizabeth Warren, their target market demographic are academics and people who are very advanced in just a few areas of intelligence.
True.
Okay, so these are very smart people, okay? And they got degrees and they do very well in their jobs, sure. But like what I said earlier, our intelligence and our various experience combined can outweigh that. When you look at the more holistic capabilities of all the various types of intelligence that come together to be successful.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? Yeah.
I do, because you have to have groupthink in order to prevent corruption. You have to. And the thing is, when you're talking about intelligence, intelligence isn't even a factor in someone getting brainwashed, especially in this day and age when there's so much complex propaganda going on. Even intelligent people, even me, even I have been fooled. And I'm not some magic. I would see myself on just a little bit above average intelligence. I haven't taken my Mensa test because I'm struggling with just identity in so many other ways. I don't want to get to that point yet. And it doesn't matter to me because IQ is not measured properly in Mensa, in my opinion, either. But either way, IQ is not even a factor in that. I mean, some ignorant people can be less manipulated than some intelligent people. It really depends on your upbringing and how much faith you're putting in certain things. And I mean, my father was a very intelligent person himself, but he got caught up in some cultural things and some very strict religious things too. Because in the end, everybody is a human and everybody has some ego part of them. Everybody has insecurity. Everybody has fear. Everybody has real consequences that can happen if they speak the truth. And just even trauma itself, not being able to even understand or take years to even put it together, you know. I'm 31 right now, but like I'm still feel like I'm in the beginning of rewriting what the heck I even went through most of my life. I feel like I've been through so much trauma that I was kind of turned off and I was kind of on automatic, you would say, and I became a strict people pleaser, and to the point where I did not take care of myself well enough, and I didn't even think about my own preferences. It wasn't until a car accident happened that I woke the fuck up. I had to start going to appointments and I had to start taking care of my body, and I started to realize that where the fuck did I go? You know, like, and then there was a whole mourning process I had of realizing I'd let myself go for everybody else just to survive. Just not even just because I felt pressured, because I was always the kind of person that I was like, I don't give a fuck what you think. And I was always been very unique, very outspoken. But even the most outspoken, unique person can become self-conscious at some point if you get hammered and hammered and hammered enough by your family and society.
Hey, look, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yo, I really enjoyed this. We're at over an hour, and there's a lot of good content in here, and we should do this again.
Cool.
Yeah, we have a First Amendment right to do this, okay? And when
I know.
the corporate there is big money in trying to manipulate what we think, and we need some normal people who are on the ground to be able to cut through that. And this is very important because this shows anybody who's watching that what you see on the TV isn't all of what's reality. There is more to it, and you are not alone if you can see through that.
Yeah, for sure. And in the end, those are the only kind of people that make a difference, really. And they find you don't choose to be a hero. Nobody chooses to. It happens, and that's it. It's not really a choice. You just kind of get put in that position. You're like me right now. I've been all kinds of brave stuff, and I know we got to go. I've been all kinds of brave stuff, but this is what's hard for me. This is what I scare more than anything else. I was not scared as much with people with other weapons in their hands as much as the backlash of me telling the truth. But yeah, let's catch up another day and do this again. I mean, I love it. It's great. I love having this conversation, and I would love to bring more people into it. And I really appreciate your time and getting with me.
Thank you so much. I want to do this every day with as many people as I can because we are the media now. And the media is the bare arms of 2019. We have a duty to protect our entire nation by using this tool to protect against tyranny. Like, this is something...
Do me a favor.
Okay. So we'll do this again in a few days. And
okay, I missed kind of what you were saying. I was gonna say, do me a favor and watch my video on my
I will send it to me through the Twitter thing, and I got one that I want to send to you too.
It's on my timeline. I'll send you a message on the mental health one, but on my timeline, it's pinned on my timeline, my personal video.
Okay, thank you. All right, so one more time for everybody who's watching, I'm Mike Britt. My YouTube channel is The Psychic Economist. I'm Infinite Britt on Twitter. And what do you got? What's your name of your YouTube channel?
Everything you can find me under is Jenan Skinner, JenanSkinner. Nobody has that name.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you on Twitter.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.